have been taken away from us. The joy of, number one, doing your own hair, unplaiting your own hair, kind of embracing your identity, loving your skin. It's those things have been taken away, and I want to bring them back to you. So if you're wondering what to do today, just take care of your identity, man. This is the Oasis, happens every single Sunday from 6 to 9 a.m. Central African time. And my name is Ntsako Mhlanga, and I'm going to be your girl. Guess what? We're together all morning. I'm wondering what your plans are today. Are you going to be going out somewhere, to church? Is it a lazy Sunday? Even you stepping out of the house, you're probably like, okay, am I even going to do that? Am I even going to step out of the household? Maybe you don't even have to. It's fine as long as you're with me the first part of the morning. So we're going to be boggling down on a very interesting discussion here. We're going to be talking about African spirituality, but also some of the brands and that were born and raised in Africa. And when I say brands, I'm talking some brands that are quite renowned now that we did not even realize were going to be. If you're in the process of building a brand right now, then I'm really hoping that is, your success point. You realize that if you're building a brand in Africa, you must understand who your market is, how to reach them. This is a lesson I learned the hard way this week, right? Because initially with my business, I did like a whole pricing strategy, and I thought, wow, I really got this in the bag, right? Like, I am good. And then I realized that the very market I'm trying to serve cannot afford my services, which meant that I had to boggle down, and not like completely, but just a little so that it can reach them. And now we're getting more feedback. So if you're a brand and you're building a brand, please be mindful of your market. Be mindful of who you're serving. Be mindful of where they are. Be mindful of the value that you bring to the table, so that you also don't have to justify your existence too much. And we're going to be speaking to Iwisa, which is a very renowned African maize brand. And for those who don't know why maize is one of the most important elements to, number one, I'll add spirituality and why it's important to spirituality. But most importantly, in the global perspective, South Africa and the lower part of Africa, the southern part of Africa right now, are the only exporters of maize to China. China is a market of, guess how many people? 1 billion people. And that's what we're doing right now. Do you understand how significant that is for the African person, for the African business? That you think that, oh, okay, well, we have so much maize, might as well just share it. We are sharing it with the world. When the only distributors, the only exporters, I'm sorry, that is enough for us to brag. Maybe I'm wrong, but that is more than enough for us to brag. On WhatsApp, +27634069126 is where you can find us. How was your World Whiskey Day? Mine was actually very relaxed. All I did was work and nap and work and nap and work and nap. And I'm happy that I had that balance in my life. So I'm really happy that I did all of that. But how are you feeling today? Let me know on social media at Channel Africa 1. My name is Ntsako Mhlanga. This is the Oasis. Welcome to the show.
The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Interracial relationships. And now you are based in the States and you are married to a beautiful white woman, white lady.
I learned that, for us in our culture, we literally can speak our mind. I remember when we had started dating and whatnot, and, she picked up like a little bit of weight. And me, I was like, oh, wow, you must be happy in this relationship because look at you. You look great. You're even picking up some weight. And she got really, really offended. And it took I think it was about a couple of hours before I could realize that, because I could tell that she was off after that. And it took me a while to figure out what it was. Until later when I was talking to her, I'm like, you're really, really off today. And then she expressed that, yeah, because you're telling me that I'm picking on some weight. And I'm like, in my culture, when you are gaining some weight, it means you're happy. Yes. So that's what I was trying to imply.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. The Oasis with Ntsako Mhlanga. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story.
Here, my social media, I don't really on the weekends engage too much on social media. It's on purpose. Sometimes it's nice to just kind of wind down, sleep, rest. And I'm trying to look at what's been trending, like what's been going on. There seems to be an FA Cup that has people in tears. I'm sorry, maybe it's because I'm a woman. I can't wait for soccer season to end. I'm so tired of hearing men cry. Like, y'all just cry about these Man Cities and the Arsenals and I can't wait. I'm so sorry. I'm just checking here on socials what's trending. It seems like a lot of reality shows are trending. People are releasing new music, which is obviously amazing. We love to see people kind of just stepping out of their comfort zone and releasing some good old music that is definitely needed. I was actually asking some artists to release more neo-soul. African neo-soul and African jazz is probably one of the best genres. This is a completely biased opinion, by the way, but it is one of the best genres in the entire world. Like, I rank it all the way up there. Like, come on, if you're talking the Zoe Mutijas, babe, the Loyisos, babe, the Langa Mavusos, darling. Oh, please try. I dare you to rank them globally and then put them below 5 or the top 5. It's not going to happen. What's coming up on the show today? We're going to be talking about a fashion competition, which is a streetwear, to design a full streetwear collection. We're going to be unpacking that. The second hour, we're going to dig a little bit deeper about what African spirituality actually means. I'm also going to talk a little bit about, because obviously I'm inspired by it, but hair. The symbolism of hair in African spirituality and what it actually means. When you dream of your hair, when you dream of your hair falling out, when you dream of your hair growing, and what it actually means, and also what it means in a lot of the biblical contexts, right? Because there's a reason why Big God was like, I know every strand on your hair. I know the number of strands on your head. Like, that is a very, very deep verse. And a lot of people are not aware of things like that. You're not aware of how verses like that are actually indicative of where we are as a people and who we are as a people. It's very important to understand your identity in conjunction to spirituality, because then you understand why people do the things that they do. So it's never been more important to understand your identity. For some reason, my brain just got reminded by the Black Panther movement, right? This was a movement done in the 1970s to the 80s, because I remember it was kind of aligned with what Steve Biko was doing in the 80s and Stokely Carmichael. So this was happening in the US. And I remember one of the most important things that was, highlighted was their afros, and they wore like these all black shirts and black polo necks almost, and then all black pants, but the afro was like the biggest thing, right? And it was because they wanted to kind of raise a black consciousness, which was, I think, one of the most important things, in the fight of equality. And hair, that was their battle. Hair. That was the most beautiful thing, was realizing that the hair was actually the main symbol of black consciousness. If we were to really, really, really unpack that, we would spend the entire day just talking about it. Because when you think of your hair as the indicator for black consciousness, you're probably asking yourself now, why have I not been proud of it? I'm not saying don't wear wigs. Listen, I got me a buzz down, an 18-inch buzz down, okay? But that natural hair that you have, whether it's relaxed, whether it's an afro, whether it's short, whether it's long, that is what you should be proud of. Okay? And no one at any point should ever make you feel guilty for wearing wigs or for wearing your hair in a different way or dyeing it a certain way. That is literally the basis, the pinnacle, in fact, not even basis. It's the pinnacle of freedom in identity. It was that, being able to wear your crown however you want. I'm wearing it like this because my Mozambican jeans are flying today. My hair is as silky. It's not even a joke. It's like, this is my hair in the most natural state. My hair cannot get any more curlier than this. It's insane. And I'm proud of it, and I absolutely love it. And of course, it's good to take care of your hair as well because of its relation to spirituality. We're going to get into all of that. I promise. I can't wait to get into all of that. Also, hypertension. It was World Hypertension Day. Was it yesterday or today? But we're celebrating it this weekend, right? And I think it's so important for you to understand that there is more than one way of dealing with things. So we're going to take a look into some of the African methods of dealing with hypertension. I know that our mothers have used hypertension as a joke for a while. One thing about African mothers be like, "Oh, you are raising my hypertension." And you're like, bro, that's not funny. But that's something that they use, right? We're going to be boggling down on how to find the most Afrocentric ways of dealing with hypertension, and I can't wait. It is 6:27 Central African time. Zoe Mudicha is waiting for us. She's saying it's in the blood. Your Africanness is in your blood, man. Your pride is in your blood. I can't wait to get into it. And then we speak about a lovely competition that can get you guys riled up for some streetwear on WhatsApp +27634069126. On social media, we are at Channel Africa 1.
Channel Africa and you have got a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice Languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future.
Channel Africa and you
have got something in common. Brand, media planning,
thirst
and
for
advertising.
knowledge.
Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling
It is
shows.
8:32 Central African Time. Welcome back to it, and we are going to get into some cool conversations. We're going to be unpacking a lovely competition that is coming up, and it's a fashion competition. So I always joke about the fact that I only grew into my fashion like now in my 20s. I was not the biggest fashionista at all. I think it's also because I had a very not boyish physique, but yeah, I mean, I guess we can call it that. And we're going to be unpacking it in more detail. And the people behind this is the number one South African iconic maize brand, Iwisa number one, which was established in 1956. And it's stepping into the world of fashion with an exciting new competition that is as bold as it is creative. Targeting young talents between the ages of 18 and 35, the initiative challenges participants to design a full streetwear collection inspired by the spirit and legacy of Iwisa number one. More than just a style contest, this campaign reaffirms the brand's commitment to staying timeless while investing in youth empowerment and the local creative industry. Eager to find out more about this, and I'm joined by Phumzile Ntsako, who is the Senior Brand Manager at the Premier FMCG. Phumzile, good morning.
Ntsako, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. I absolutely love it when there's a woman and the word senior next to it.
Oh,
very tantalizing.
All about women empowerment, isn't it?
Very tantalizing to me. So talk to us about this. I think more so the connection between the fashion and the brand itself and what it stands for.
Yeah, 100%. So I also love when you said that you weren't really into the fashion space because you were boyish, but we know now, Ntsako, that fashion is very unisex, so it's very universal.
100%.
100%. So really going into the campaign, so the Iwisa number one Feels Bold campaign is an exciting national fashion design competition. We've just recently launched the competition on the 1st of May. Wow. And for us as a brand, it's really more than just a competition. And we know that Iwisa is not really in the fashion space. But what really we're trying to achieve with this competition, we're inviting young South Africans, and as you mentioned, between the age of 18 to 35 to design bold Iwisa number one inspired apparel that reflects our rich heritage and celebrates the unique creativity. And as a brand, we are about building strong communities and empowering individuals within them. And Iwisa number one has been part of so many South Africans' everyday lives, and I'm sure you're very familiar with Iwisa Ntsako. Mm-hmm. And it's not just about feeding families. And as I mentioned, we may not be in the fashion space, but as a brand, we are about filling people with things that matter the most. And Feels Bold is an extension of that purpose. For us, it's more than just about fashion. It's about filling a new generation with confidence, culture, and a sense of belonging. So by creating this platform, we're really trying to empower the youth by giving them the space to be seen, express themselves boldly through their creativity and their unique identity, so they can contribute to a future where they can thrive in.
And you know what's interesting about everything that you're saying right now is that I low-key made the connection between fashion and Iwisa, right? Because when you think about those who are consuming Iwisa and their interests, that's where they are. Because when I started the show, I spoke about how you need to understand your market and understand what they're actually liking. So I think it kind of fits quite beautifully. Why are we targeting the youth? I know it sounds like an obvious question to answer, but why specifically the youth with this initiative?
Yes, so the reason why we are targeting the youth is because this competition is more than just a competition for us. This is a movement. And we're really trying to empower the next generation to be part of the Iwisa movement. And we know if we develop the youth and we empower them, the future is bright for South Africans. So that's why we're really trying to get the youth into the space And we know in terms of fashion, being fashion forward, being creative, the youth is number one within the space. And we're really challenging the youth to be part of this. And most people will think Elise is just a staple brand, and that's why we're trying to connect with the youth in the space and develop them and give them the necessary tools to say that I was bold enough to be part of the Elisa number one movement. I made a history, and I was involved in this exciting and amazing concept through my creativity and design.
And what are some of the attributes of this competition? So, are there specific categories with streetwear, or is it just full-on streetwear? Like, what are some of the details that we need to be made aware of before entering?
Yes. So, in terms of this competition, we're really asking entrants to submit their own signature design, digital designs for a full fashion set. So, Ntsako, this includes a T-shirt, a jacket, pants, bucket hat, tote bag, and socks. And we're asking them to blend the Elisa number one's traditional cultural heritage with their own signature, modern, youthful style. And as much as we want them to be creative and we don't want to limit their creativity, submissions must also incorporate Elisa number one's brand identity and color palette. So these top entries will be shortlisted by and judged by an expert panel judges. So where we will select our first, second, and third place winners. And really what we're looking for when we talk about street culture, we'll leave this to the young people. They know what street culture is, but we're looking for designs that are filled with boldness, so that really capture the identity of the brand in a unique and relevant way. So this line of clothing should be a bold statement about how they see Elisa number one in their lives as well as in the future.
And what do the winners walk away with?
Yes. So in terms of the winners, so the number one winner will win a MacBook Pro with 38,000 Rand and 20,000 Rand in cash. And the second prize winner will win 10,000 Rand cash. And the the third prize winner will also win 5,000 Rand in cash. So over and above the cash prizes, will also give them tools to fuel their creative career beyond the winning moment. So we are looking in terms of giving them the necessary PR coverage. We are looking at, in terms of mentoring these winners. So if it's a student or someone that's very early into their career, we'll be providing with expert panel judges as well as the connections that we have in the space to give them the mentorship, as well as if you're a seasoned designer. Again, this will further give you the exposure and the awareness in terms of your own brand to really excel in this space.
I've never wanted to be a designer more than now, eh? Yo, that's 20,000, boy, yeah. And to a young person, there's a saying in Zulu, it says, "Awixoshi pants." A competition like this where there's an incentive like that and continuous support, I feel like it really feeds into the dream, literally feeds, pun intended, into the dreams of, young people. And it's quite exciting. So talk to me about the collaborations. Are you guys collaborating with different people to make sure that this happens? What other partners, or are you open to collaborating with different organizations to, make it happen? Or, what is it looking like on that front?
Yes, so the primary reward really for this competition is recognition, funding, and creative tools. So we're also exploring and showcasing, selecting winning designs through digital channels and brand events. And our broader goal really is to profile these young designers themselves and help them build long-lasting, successful careers. So if we're able to do this, then they will carry this feel bold confidence and feeling into the future, and undoubtedly share this with others as well, so they can start their own powerful number one movements. So yes, at the moment, I cannot share in terms of the partners that we are looking into, but really there's big spaces in terms of them showcasing their work on digital channels and brand events. And once we've wrapped that up, we're hoping to communicate that soon in June.
Absolutely looking forward to it. So please spill the tea. What are the details? Where can we sign up? Where can one look forward to winning and putting together their ideal street style? Phumzile.
Sorry, my network dropped.
No
So I
worries.
couldn't hear that. Yes, so for people who are looking to enter, they need to go on our Iwisa number one. So I'm echoing on your side. Not sure what's happening there. Ntsako?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, you can hear me.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So anybody that really wants to enter the competition, they can go on our social media pages. So they can go on the Iwisa number one Facebook and the Iwisa number one Instagram. And on there, we've got a microsite. And when they click on the microsite, it will send them, when they click on the link, it will send them to our microsite. And on the microsite, there is an entrance entry form, and they will have to fill in that form. We've also got a brief template that's uploaded there, as well as they'll have to submit digital designs, and then they'll have to upload on the microsite.
Absolutely looking forward to it. On social media, where can we find you?
You can find us on our Facebook as well as on our Instagram account.
Awesome stuff. Phumzile, thank you so much for joining us today. We're looking forward to seeing what is new in the fashion space. And I think the young people are going to come up with some of the most incredible designs. And I'm looking forward to that creativity.
Thank you so much. So we're really, really excited on our end. And I'd really like to pose the challenge to your listeners and everybody out there. So if you're a young designer with bold ideas and dreams, this is your moment. So enter the Iwisa number one Feels Bold competition and show us how you fill the world with your culture and confidence and creativity. So I'm looking forward to seeing how stories will be felt and let your bold be seen. So remember, please, to visit our Iwisa number one social media pages and be part of building the future where we can all feel proud of. Thank you so much, Ntsako, for having me on your show this morning.
Amazing stuff. Thank you, Phumzile Nhlapo, the Senior Brand Manager at the Premier FMCG, which is Iwisa number one. 6:43 Central African Time. What music do we have coming up? We've got some jazz all over Africa. We've got some good old feel-good music. What are you having for lunch? Hey, funny enough, I have not even thought that far today, hey? I have not thought that far today. I think I'm really taking like each hour as it comes, because I've got quite a busy day ahead, so it's I think lunch will just be something on the road at this point. On WhatsApp, +27634069126 is where you can find us. I'm also going to go down a rabbit hole with you guys. I've literally explored teas, right? Like tea, like not coffee, but tea. And I want to share some of the teas that I've been drinking to make sure that you guys are also, going back to the easier and simpler times where we didn't have to have the energy drinks and the what. And, if you're looking to slim down, there's also a little tea there that I might, slip in, for you, just so that you can understand, you don't have to go the Ozempic way. There are natural ways of doing this thing, man. It is 6:45 Central African Time.
What does Africa covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle. We deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa.
Some good old music to get you started for the day. Are you still in bed? Or maybe you just got back from a run. Maybe those people that will leave their bed for a run. Personally, winter's a little bit of a tricky one. I enjoy winter sleep. It's just different, you know. Winter rest, it just slaps differently. But summer, definitely. Out of my bed, out of my house at 5 a.m, I could easily go for a run. Winter, it's a tricky one. And, you know, I was actually reflecting on some of the conversations we were having on the show yesterday and, you know, asking what brings you joy. And I was looking at the happy hormone, right, your endorphins. And they're actually easily produced through exercise. So if you're feeling a little depressy-wessy of late, you know, things are not really as nice as you'd want them to be, I think you should go for a walk, darling. I think you should take a walk. I think you should take a stroll. I think you need to hit the gym because that happy hormone needs to be triggered. And the only way it could be triggered in a healthy way is exercise. I know you're probably like, oh, again, now I have to go to the gym. I know I said I'm gonna start this year. No matter what, I'm going back to the gym this year. But life gets in the way, dude. Really, your entire health is at jeopardy, and you're still finding excuses for not going to the gym, bruh. I need you to hop on your Zoom quickly. Speaking of Zoom, we're going to get into the conversation in the second hour. We're going to look at African spirituality holistically, understanding your power, stepping into your power. When I understood how to manifest and what manifesting really is, child, let me tell you something. The fact that most of the things that you can actually bring to life start with the mind and what you think about every day and the content you consume every single day. Child, I don't know about you. But let me tell you something. You can literally create the reality of your dreams with just your thoughts. That's obviously just the beginning of manifesting, but it really gets deep. But the one thing we need to understand is our power. As human beings, as people, you need to understand your power. We need to stop blaming the devil or that evil force for when things go bad. You are powerful as a being, because most of the things that we're fighting are very spiritual, but you're the one that's alive. So you get to decide what affects you. You get to decide what really irks you. You get to decide how you respond to certain things. And that's where true power exists. Because naturally, human nature leans to power. It desires power. It's either it desires to be empowered or to have power over. But generally, the human nature desires to have power over things. But mind my words, I said desires. The implementation thereof, of the desire, is where everything goes south. Things go a little bit funny. I've been spending a lot of time understanding human nature, understanding human trends and why humans do the things that they do. And it's been a really, really interesting one. But who has power over what we know now and what we're going to know at 7:05, Matapelo, because she is going to give us the news bulletin for the hour. And it is 7 a.m. Central African time. Matapelo, take it away.
SABC News, independent and impartial.
From an African perspective.
Thank you, Ntsako. Top stories this hour. Ramaphosa unfazed ahead of US visit and Trump to call Putin and NATO leaders good morning. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says he is not worried about his upcoming visit to the United States amid accusations of genocide against white Afrikaners. He is to undertake a working visit during which he will meet his counterpart Donald Trump. Ramaphosa says he will discuss the bilateral relations with the US.
No, I'm not worried about anything. We're going there to discuss trade and our bilateral relations. And that's what we are going to discuss. It's country to country, and we trade with each other, so we have to relate to each other, and that's just what it is. And so just as he meets other people, and I also meet other people, it's state to state, we are representing our peoples.
The Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has approved the purchase of more air assets to fight insurgency in the northeastern part of the country. This follows a meeting of defense officials in which Tinubu ordered the military to step up counter-terrorism operations. The BBC's Julian Bedford has the details.
Regional governors have been warning Abuja that the Nigerian military is losing ground. There have been numerous attacks on army bases in recent weeks, and Bola Tinubu is searching for better ways of combating a 20-year insurgency that's claimed tens of thousands of lives and displaced millions. Additional warplanes, helicopters and drones is just one of his ideas. But families of soldiers killed in the fighting have told local media that what's really needed is adequate arms and ammunition for the troops on the ground.
And the Director General in the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies in South Africa, Nokubela Jordan Dlani, says the country has managed to reach 82% geographic coverage when it comes to digital access. Yesterday marked World Telecommunications and Information Society Day. Jordan Dlani says they are considering a number of programs to cater for part of the population that has been left out.
In terms of a policy intervention, so we have the SA Connect, and now we're looking at the digital public infrastructure program. So the SA Connect is what I talked to in terms of making sure that we bridge the digital divide. But we also have another program on the digital skills, focusing in terms of training.
And the SABC has secured the rights to broadcast the CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations final between South Africa and Morocco from the Cairo International Stadium in Egypt. Kickoff is at 8 p.m. Central African Time Zone tonight and will be live on the SABC2 station. And U.S. President Donald Trump says he will have a phone call with the Russian leader Vladimir Putin tomorrow. He said it would be followed by similar conversations with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and leaders of various NATO countries. Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022, but has managed to seize just 20% of the country. The BBC's Jake Wan reports.
The phone call is the latest step in President Trump's effort to try to bring about a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Mr. Trump had said earlier he believed no peace would be reached until he held face-to-face talks with President Putin. The phone call is expected to discuss that possible summit, as well as the 30-day ceasefire that the U.S. and Ukraine has been demanding.
A recap of your top stories. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is unfazed about his upcoming visit to the United States, despite allegations of genocide against white Afrikaners. He will meet with Trump and discuss bilateral relations. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Matapelo Mahabe.
SABC News, independent and impartial.
From an African perspective.
Makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history.
Of the show, we are smack bang in the middle of it, into the thick of it. And as we celebrate Africa Month, the Oasis is turning its gaze inward. So when we sat with management, when we sat with production regarding the Oasis, right? Because I want to talk you through. I'm going to break the fourth wall now. Allow me. And there's a reason for it. When we sat with the team and we said, look, we need a show that really speaks about spirituality. And it was something that Nombusa and I had been talking about for months. Like, we had been flirting with different topics. We kind of like throw it in there, see the response. Because, of course, you have to do the market research, right? We realized that without spirituality, the African perspective cannot be discussed. That's just a fact, right? You're asking yourself why? because it's the basis of Africanism. When we are asked about what makes us African, the first thing that is spoken about is our rooted spirituality. It's what governs us. It's what makes us us. So if you're going to talk about the African perspective, spirituality needs to come to the front. And then we realized that we need to sit and really help people understand why certain practices exist. Why when there's lightning, you guys have to sit down, no one must stand up. Why when you can go dance in the rain, it helps you. Why is your hair so important? Why is your identity so important? Why when you walk in mud, it is probably one of the most important practices, right? For those who don't know, mud has melanin in it. The same thing that makes mud brown is what makes us brown. Now you're like, oh, okay. We're very connected to this earth thing, but we're so disconnected from her in terms of practice. And that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to understand the power and relevance of spirituality. We're going to talk about the symbolism, rhythm, and rooted wisdom, and the deep cultural identity and personal healing. I was watching a show. I'm not going to expose it. But I was watching a show yesterday. They had their reunion. And one of the major conversations that came up was a particular cast member. She calls herself Mrs. J. Ne? And she is a proud traditional healer. And she had a trance on the show. And it was quite traumatic for everyone around because they didn't know what to do, right? Which I think naturally so. When you don't know what to do to help someone, you will be freaked out, right? So that's what happened. She went into a trance, and in that moment, she had a lot of messages to deliver, and it was quite hectic. And I remember the ladies mocking her for that trance, right? And my beef was not the fact that they were mocking her. My beef was the lack of knowledge on what African spirituality actually means and what it meant in that moment. When you are accompanied or encountering that many spirits at once, what actually goes on. So for me, that mocking, I was like, I don't mind the Western world mocking us because vele, that's what they're going to do. What I do mind is when our very own, like your fellow sister, your fellow brother, is also mocking, is in the mocking territory. I don't like that. So we're going to educate you today. We're going to provide some more clarity on what African spirituality, symbolism, rhythm, and rooted wisdom comes from. Knowing as well that some practices started way back then. Way back then. I learned yesterday that in order to court a woman back then, if you wanted, like you intended to marry her, you had to get her jewelry. And I'm like, I need me a diamond necklace, sweetie. It makes sense. It is 10 minutes past 7 a.m. We've got some great music as well coming up. You do want to stick around for this conversation. We are educating you. For any questions, maybe you're wondering, what does it mean to me? On WhatsApp, +27634069126.
You got something to say? Are you passionate about but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have
a.m. Good morning. Welcome to the show. We are going to be having a lovely chat about African spirituality. And I think it's very important for us to have this chat because we're celebrating Africa Month, right? And one of the things, in fact, it's really the core of who we are, is our spirit beings. And it's important to keep the spirit being healthy, happy, in tuned, aligned, abundant, just all the beautiful A's that Africa is for abundance. And also it's sourced to our identity and how we identify ourselves in the spirituality. So joining us on the line is a traditional healer and spiritual teacher. She's going to be speaking to us in just a moment, and I can't wait to unpack it. The Ntsako Mhlanga, she's going to be speaking to us in a moment to unpack this a little bit further, because I think also we need to know even the stigma. I know that there's one thing that we have been fighting for the past, I think, good 10 years now, but that's the stigmatization of people, right? Not necessarily just healers only, but how do we stigmatize Africans? I find it so heartbreaking and so gut-wrenching, really, when you see a fellow African person stigmatizing someone else for what they choose to believe in, the culture that they choose to believe in. And like it always raises an eyebrow. You're just like, bro, like which continent are you on? Because how are you stigmatizing when we're so diverse as an African people? Like there's actually no way. Like for me, and what's nice is that my facial expressions will always tell you the truth before my mouth does. Me, I'll side eye you. Next time I'm present when a stigmatization is happening, I'm giving you a bombastic side eye, a criminal offensive side eye. Because truly, not in 2025. Just because something is different to you does not mean it's wrong. People, just because you do not share the same opinion, it does not mean you get to call it wrong or deem it wrong. Just because you don't believe in it. When you think about some of the easiest ways to heal, it's through the sun, the rain, mud, going to walk on mud and what that does for your nervous system. It's absolutely incredible. So let's stick to things like that. Let's protect things like that. Let's protect how we relate to nature. I mean, the sun is shining through the studio as we speak right now, and it's warm, it's fuzzy. It makes you feel like the world is spinning for you. It makes you so connected to the world, and it's so lovely, man. On social media, we are at Channel Africa 1, and on WhatsApp, +27634069126. I have a question for you. What does spirituality mean for your identity? Who you choose to serve, who you choose to, believe in. How does that serve your identity? Let me know. +27634069126. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we chat to Ntsako Mhlanga, who is a traditional healer and a spiritual teacher, and speaking about some of the indigenous knowledge systems that we have in our African spirituality. All of this is coming up after these.
This is the Oasis on through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of your mornings with inspirational stories. African run and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act.
It is a 7:34 Central African time. We've got Mori Kante with marriage. Maybe it's the marriage of all the ancestors coming together. We're celebrating African spirituality this Africa month. It's never been more important, never been more prevalent for us to be connected to what makes us us. You know, we're spirits first before we're human beings. That's just a fact. And, you know, everything else is the education part. It's the knowledge part. So I know I'm very conscious of the fact that our audience is a culmination of different cultures, religions, and belief systems, right? Please receive this as an educational moment to help you understand those who believe in African spirituality. Right? So I know that some people are very particular about, even when you think about the word ancestor, you immediately are associating it with a lot of negativity. I'm going to ask you today to open your mind, open your heart to education. This is just an educational moment. We're talking about our symbolism. We're talking about the wisdom. We're talking about the depth of our identity and personal healing, which is rooted in our African spirituality. And joining us is traditional healer and spiritual teacher, Ugogo Kumi Hamese. Gogo Togoza, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Tobela. How are you guys doing today?
We are doing great. We're as great as your skin, girl. My word. I am going to DM you about that routine. I hope it's all natural.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that.
So we've had a lot of conversations on social media. We've had a lot of conversations on the just general media about what African spirituality is and how to identify ourselves in that. Talk to us about African spirituality and what does that mean to the human being and the human experience?
Sure. What is African spirituality? For me, I truly believe it is rooted in who we are. So it is the connection to elements of nature. It is the connection to those that have come before us, the acknowledgement of the work that they've done for us, you know, the path that they've walked before us. And in different cultures, right, for us, it was the connection with the higher power. So every culture had its own connection with the higher power. And it does not necessarily reflect the connection of the higher power that we have today, post colonization. So it was about, honestly, connecting with spirit. We were honestly a people that were generally always connected to spirit. We didn't need a book to tell us how to connect with spirit. We were connected with spirit every day. Everything that we did, in the activities that we did, you know, to go out and hunt, you know, to speak to the moon and the sun. We used to have astrologers that would speak to the moon and the sun way before there was this obsession with astrology, right? And so even in the kingdom, we're talking about in the kingship, right? Before the king takes a decision, he would speak to his helper, which was usually a traditional healer. That traditional healer would then go consult spirit. So when we talk about spirit, he would speak to God and their ancestors, meaning the kings that passed and were kings before that king came. The queens that were sitting on the throne before that king or queen sat on the throne. So that is our acknowledgement of those that have passed before us, is to say, okay, we're going into battle. Is the route that we are taking safe? Is the battle plan that we have, is it okay? Can you guide us and help us? Because you've been a king, you've sat on this chair before, you know what it takes to go to war, you've led us to several and we've won them. What do we do? Are we as a people, and is our king taking the right decision? So everything of ours was spiritual, even childbirth. How they planned who you would mate with, what would happen during childbirth, specifically targeting the fact that the husband would not be present. The old ladies, the ones that were the midwives, would take care of the birthing rights of the woman, including taking care of the sack. If your child was born in a sack, they knew what to do with the umbilical cord. Those are all got to do with African spirituality. It's about culture and tradition. What we believe is the significance of keeping the umbilical cord. Where do you bury it? Why? What do you do if a child is born in a sack? What do you do with it? Then only afterwards the father notified that, okay, the child is here. So it's small things like that people don't understand play the bigger role of what African spirituality is. It is a connection with a greater being all the time, understanding that we have rules and regulations for everything. The menstrual cycle, how it's connected to the moon. Africans knew that knowledge. We didn't need anybody to teach us. And those that came to teach us about their religion, they knew what they were doing because they knew how connected we were to who we are. And so they knew that for them, in order for them to destroy African spirituality, they'd need to paint it as something inferior to what it is that they deem as their religion. And that is how today African spirituality is something that is a touchy subject or it's judged. When in actuality, people were connected to African spirituality every single day of their lives, just in the basic way that they lived life. Water, the earth, the moon, the stars, the sky, we were connected to all those things. It even shows in the way that when they discovered the writings of the Khoisan in the caves, those writings said that it would be the stick man and the animal. They would put the moon and the stars. It shows you that with or without education, we had a system going that worked for us, a system that worked perfectly for us, because up until the point where that system was changed, somehow the people were able to live, right? They had a God that they were communicating with. How did they know? Because it was always something that inherently is in us.
It's interesting. The two thoughts came to mind when you spoke about how when kings speak about or spoke to their helper and also consulted the kings before them. Reminded me of a very popular movie called Black Panther, where that scene was depicted exactly that way. When King T'Challa now had to step into his role, and he went, and then they did a ritual where they sunk him, they buried him under the sand, like this purple sand, and then he woke up in a trance and spoke to the kings before him. And I find it sometimes interesting that we can receive it when it's from Hollywood,
Yes.
Because the practice that you're speaking about was on movie screens across the world, where that practice was so beautiful. But on this end, in general conversations, African spirituality, and not just inferior, it hasn't just been made inferior, but almost outlandish. It's almost outrageous, some of the practices. In fact, let's even simplify the words, crazy. You're almost seen as crazy for believing certain things and acting a certain way. What are some of the practices that have when you think about the 5G networks that have they intercept your general connection with the earth? But what are some of the practices and the daily practices that those who believe in African spirituality should be doing, or the general human being should be doing to connect better with the earth?
I think one of the most important things is your diet. I know that I'm not perfect with my diet, but I know that it's one of the things that contributes to how we connect. I do truly believe that it was done systematically. So for our food, for example, to be filled with just a lot of junk. We eat a lot of junk, guys, and South Africa has changed in the way that it operates, because every other corner where you drive, you see a fast food joint. Now, you don't know how that food is processed. Our chickens alone, get injected with all kinds of things, and then the next thing you know, you're eating unhealthy chicken. So what it is that kept our elders, I'd say, spiritually balanced, is their actions. So starting with your food, everything was homegrown, everything was healthy. They also used to exercise quite a lot, so they'd walk long distances. So they were not struggling with weight, really. They were quite lean. They were good because they would exercise in the most natural way. And the food was full of protein. The food was full of protein, excuse me, and it was also full of nutrients that help you grow, right? So for me, it's our diet. Definitely our diet is a problem. And then also then you look at just the way that our minds are programmed. I think every single day we get something that kind of speaks against you being yourself and looking at your past. So things that influence you from not looking back. So what I love about my particular gift and how amazing and beautiful it's grown is I would give someone the history of their family from the times of Ushaka Zulu. Wow. I can tap that far back in your lineage, only so that your ancestors can give you like a clearer depiction of the kind of family you come from. Because remember, a lot of people lost their royal lineages while on the road. Maybe the royalty was stolen, landed in the wrong hands. So what some people's ancestors want me to do is trace their royal lineage for them to kind of link that to their gift, to explain to you why particular things are happening the way that they are, why you're dreaming certain things, and then how that connects you to spirituality, and in the greater scheme of things, what they expect you to do with this royal lineage and the responsibilities therefore. So also knowing and understanding who you are. So I'm not talking about African spirituality wise, I'm talking about your family tree. Who are you? Who birthed your mother? Who birthed your grandmother? Who birthed your great-grandmother? Who birthed that great-grandmother? And what kind of family do they come from? You know, how many lineages down can you count the surnames that you know? You know what I'm trying to say? So little bits of things like that. But also another thing, guys, that I really, really do not like is paternity disputes. That can cause a lot of spiritual disruptions in a person's life. So I'm going to specifically speak to the ladies. I know that sometimes we can get caught up in a situation where maybe you're not sure who the father of the child is and there's a DNA mix-up. Please make sure that you check at birth to make sure that you're giving this child to the right family, because that move on its own can cast a very dark cloud over a child's life. And next thing you know, the trajectory of this child's life changes completely. And I get it. Back in the days, the same ancestors we're talking about, the people that have passed, they used to raise kids that were not theirs. So I'll give you an example of Shaka Zulu and how he was not raised by his father once he left the kingdom with Queen Nandi. And everybody understands that Shaka and his father never got along. So Nandi chose her child, like every mother should, and she left. So along the way, what happened to Shaka's journey? He obviously got raised by other people that were not his father. Now, some people can say that that was a positive thing to happen, and 100% it is. But I think we are forgetting the fact that Shaka knew where home was. So if at any point he wanted to go back, even if his mother was in marriage, if he wanted to walk back, he knew exactly where to go. So that is the great difference. Yes, you can be raised by a stepfather. Yes, another man can step up and be a present father in your child's life. But the core of it is that the DNA of the child must be at the correct place. Now, whether or not a father wants to take responsibility of his child, that's another conversation on its own. Sure. But make sure that you are honest about the identity of the father of the child. Therefore, everybody can make a decision on where they want this thing to go. So do you want your child to have a relationship with you as a father? And if you don't, that's your problem. But at least he or she knows, this is my grandmother, this is my dad's sister. Like, you basically know that that surname, that live stream surname is my, true, what do you call it? A DNA. Yeah. And once you understand that that's your true DNA, then you can take it from there in terms of understanding the lineage that you then follow. So what lineage do you follow? Who are these people? So even if they may not acknowledge you, but you know who they are. You know that they come from royalty. So therefore, when funny things are happening and you start getting this gift and the dreams are confusing and you start dreaming of this king that constantly visits you all the time, now you know why. So they may not be your biological family that walks with you in life where dad is supportive and financially contributing and whatever, but you just acknowledge the fact that that is my father and that his grandmother is whoever and their great grandparents are whoever and whoever, and that way you get to trace back your lineage. Once you have these things that are bothering you and this is happening, you then get to take the time to trace back your lineage and truly understand who you are. So it's basic things like that, not knowing your bloodline, our diet, the things that we just do. And then I also think that not being in nature, like I feel like it's really destroyed us. So yes, I'm very happy that the brown community now is doing hiking, especially in South Africa. I'm not in Southern Africa, but in South Africa, hiking on a Saturday morning is a thing now. I'm proud of us for that. However, we can take it a step further and truly learn to connect with nature. So you can take a bit more herbs and leave the pills from the pharmacy a little bit because they do have herbs in them. But, it's just something about, making your hibiscus tea, for example, or you've got a flu and then you take instead of putting that flu mixture that you're going to get at the pharmacy, you try something else. So let's try our best, by all means, to connect with nature. And I love the hiking thing. Absolutely. I feel like that's one step ahead. So, but let's make it often, Also, viewing a period as a time where you're dirty, in African spirituality, that's not a thing. Try and see how your period is connected to the moon. But also when you're lost, just speak. Say, okay, I'm a little bit confused. Can I get some guidance? I'm not going to specify this guidance to anybody, but I just want to know, what is the power of my period? Can I have a dream that kind of explains that? Okay, how do I relate to the stars? What can the stars teach me about who I am? So just connecting more with nature. I know we love an infinity pool, but go swim at the river. Go swim at the river. But also acknowledge that we are a people that acknowledge that every space in nature has inhabitants that were there before us. So ask for permission before going into the river. Throw in a silver coin and just say, I'm not here to harm. I'm not here to kill. I just want to swim and connect with the elements of the water. When you go to the mountain, same thing. I'm not here to harm. I'm not here to kill. I'm just here to connect with the elements of nature. And I think the more and more we do that, we change our diet, we start eating, fresh beans and fresh vegetables and fruit, and make sure that we're eating Roadrunner chicken instead of that KFC that we always love to eat. Sorry for brand dropping, but that deep fried chicken is what I'm trying to say. If we change that, then I think we're able to center ourselves a bit more. So those are a few of the challenges that I feel dietary, where we live also, it doesn't allow for us to have cows. You live in an estate. You live in a small space. How are you going to have chickens and cows running around? So obviously, yes, we don't know where our meat comes from because we're not killing it ourselves. You know what I'm trying to say? We're not able to kill it ourselves. So maybe let's start investing in land in the villages. And once in a while, you just go there. You just sit and listen to nature. You switch off your phone. You just connect with just something other than the buzz of being in a restaurant and popping bottles and listening to music. The normal things. Another thing, the consumption of alcohol.
Hey, son.
It's killing us. It's killing us as the brown community. We consume way too much alcohol. At this point, we are functioning alcoholics. And it's not even that we're taking murula from the murula tree and we're brewing beer, because that is also a beer. You can make beer like that. You can ferment murula. You can also, I don't even want to get into the sorghum traditional beer that we usually make. You can actually make beer from certain fruits from the tree. just by fermenting it. And what I learned in Mozambique, for example, they then take that beer and they dig a hole, they put it in the hole, and they bury it for a few days as the ceremony is coming under a tree.
Wow.
And once they take it out, they don't completely take it out. It sits in the hole. And the men know where to find it. They know where the tree is. And they go with their cups, they pour, they come back. Wow. They go with the cup, but you pour there. It's like they've created a ritual in this drinking of this traditional beer, where it's like you acknowledge the gods, and then you drink this beer, and then they come back with it, and it's not served to the women. So just these small things where, we're drinking things that have chemicals in them that don't necessarily balance us for the good. If anything, they trigger certain illnesses that I feel brown people never used to really have. I'll mention one illness that I feel is now it's killing the brown community in South Africa. It's cancer. Oh. That used to be a sickness that was for the less melanated. So now it is thriving in our community, So just small things like that, we can attribute to some of our daily routines, the daily things that we use, even the equipment in your kitchen, the one that's the air and it can fry things, we don't really know how they make these things. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? But we make them something that helps us in our daily, because we love convenience so much. We don't really tap into, can convenience kill us? Can convenience end up leading me to an early grave? And these are things that our great-grandparents never had to challenge. They never had a problem. They were making fire. They were cooking outside. They were growing their own everything. They were going in the wild and picking what they needed, coming back and cooking. So the change of lifestyle is very extreme, and I think it's contributed to that. Also, eating foods that we don't know how they were made. So those things, I feel, honestly, are contributing to our bodies not being as balanced spiritually, because we are taking in things that are not good for us.
Do you do consultations? I think you might have struck a nerve with a lot of people when you spoke about tracing back lineage, I think, and paternity as well. I think a lot of us struggle with that. Just generally, when you look at the African community right now, fatherlessness in so many homes, you can imagine people are searching for that, are constantly searching for just a sense of their identity. Do you do consultations or any cleansings? Or I know there's different healers do different things, right? How do people reach you?
I don't really like the conversation on how people reach me, but I will say it. Only because I feel like we operate in a very old school way, by the way. Me and my guides are very old school. So we don't want to go fishing for people. We want people to find us because their guides have chosen us. Because I believe I deal with a specific set of people with a specific gift. Most of them come from a royal lineage, and most of them are meant to be healers in one way or another.
Sure.
And they're not meant to be healers in a specific way that is the same as everybody. And also, even the methods that we use are slightly different from everybody else, because we have our own systems that we use. So we're still very traditional. Okay. So though I will say how people can reach me, it's not so that they can come and consult. It's you get guided to me through your guides.
Okay.
You don't take the decision to contact me because you saw me on social media and you've chosen me to be your guardian in this journey that you're going. Because remember, I have a gift to speak. It is part of my journey to speak. I heal with my mouth.
Yes.
I am a communicator by nature.
Yes.
That is what I was born to do.
Sure.
So I was born to extend my gift from speaking on radio and from speaking on voiceovers, which is what I do. I've now extended that gift into my spiritual journey, and now I heal with my mouth. So it's not so that people can see me and then know that they can go to that lady for consultations because they saw her looking cool or they heard her on the radio. It's so that I can show you that life goes beyond what it is that you think So you may be a healer, but you can also be a speaker, for example. You may be a healer, but you can also be a medical doctor on the other side. So you can do and be anything you want to be a healer. I do consultations, and I do cleanses. I'm not one of those that does a mass cleansing either. So each patient comes at their own time, in their own space, because we take care of each person in such a different way. Because we don't believe that any two people are the same. And we would also assist if ever, like, there were small rituals that need to be done. And when I say small, I don't mean the kind of rituals that need your whole family to be there so you guys can do a ritual. I mean just rituals to settle and help you move to the next phase of your spiritual journey. We also guide people through their journey. So just in terms of helping you get your balance, but our guidance is one that leads you back to your own people. So it's not one that's meant to confuse you that we are the ones that are in charge of your journey. It's one that's meant to tell you that the more you connect to your own ancestors, it's the more power that you gain, because we truly believe that spiritual independence is what is killing people. You can go to a healer, but the minute you become reliant on them, you're killing yourself, because the power is in you understanding who you are. The power is in you tracing your lineage, for example. The power is in you being able to speak to your own ancestors, because if they can speak to them, why can't you? If I can speak to your ancestors, why can't you? Yes, I can help you break that
I think we got cut there. Yikes. I was really getting to that. We're going to get the last part of it, but it is 8 a.m. Central African time. Let's hop over to Tapestry. She's on standby with the news.
SABC News. Independent and impartial.
From an African perspective.
Thank you, Ntsako. Top stories this hour. Ramaphosa unfazed ahead of U.S. visit, and indirect Qatar talks pave way for Gaza ceasefire and hostage swap. Good morning. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says he is not worried about his upcoming visit to the United States amid accusations of genocide against white Afrikaners. He is to undertake a working visit during which he will meet his counterpart Donald Trump. Ramaphosa says he will discuss bilateral relations with the U.S.
No, I'm not worried about anything. We're going there to discuss trade and our bilateral relations, and that's what we are going to discuss. It's country to country, and we trade with each other, so we have to relate to each other, and that's just what it is. And so just as he meets other people, and I also meet other people, it's state to state, we are representing our peoples.
Meanwhile, international relations expert and former South African diplomat Dr. Kingsley Makubela has cautioned of the possibility of President Cyril Ramaphosa being humiliated in the U.S. Oval Office like Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. During his meeting with the U.S. President Donald Trump, Ramaphosa will tomorrow embark on a working visit to the U.S. in a high-stakes meeting amid tense diplomatic relations between the two countries. Makubela elaborates.
Trump is likely to play to the media gallery. He's done that before. My view is when the press contingents in the White House try to provoke Ramaphosa, he should just say to them, listen, all these issues that Trump has raised, I want to be discussing a closed meeting. Would brief you after the closed meeting, and we are quite confident that after the closed meeting, we will find each other on those issues. Instead of trying to rebut him in the meeting and be confrontational in that meeting. If Ramaphosa attempts to also play to the media gallery, it could degenerate into the Zelensky syndrome.
And the Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has approved the purchase of more air assets to fight insurgency in the northeastern part of the country. This follows a meeting of defense officials in which Tinubu ordered the military to step up counter-terrorism operations. The BBC's Julian Bedford has the details.
Regional governors have been warning Abuja that the Nigerian military is losing ground. There have been numerous attacks on army bases in recent weeks, and Bola Tinubu is searching for better ways of combating a 20-year insurgency that's claimed tens of thousands of lives and displaced millions. Additional warplanes, helicopters and drones is just one of his ideas. But families of soldiers killed in the fighting have told local media that what's really needed is adequate arms and ammunition for the troops on the ground.
The Director General in the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies in South Africa, Nongobela Jordan Danyi, says the country has managed to reach 82% geographic coverage when it comes to digital access. Yesterday marked World Telecommunications and Information Society Day. Jordan Danyi says they are considering a number of programs to cater for part of the population that has been left out.
In terms of a policy intervention, so we have the SA Connect, and now we're looking at the digital public infrastructure program. So the SA Connect is what I talked to in terms of making sure that we bridge the digital divide. But we also have another program on the digital skills, focusing in terms of training.
And details have emerged of a possible deal of another ceasefire in Gaza after Hamas and Israel officials held indirect talks in Qatar. Palestinian sources have said that Hamas will be prepared to release another 9 Israeli hostages in exchange for a day truce, the release of some Palestinian prisoners and the resumption of humanitarian aid. The BBC's Waya Davis has the details.
There's considerable pressure on Israel and Hamas to agree to the American plan that would see some hostages released from Gaza in exchange for a period of calm. That pressure is reportedly bringing both sides closer to agreement, but differences remain. The main sticking point appears to be a commitment not to restart the war after a ceasefire ends. If they fail to agree and Israeli troops return to Gaza in their thousands, the consequences could be unthinkable.
A recap of your top stories. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is unfazed about his upcoming visit to the US amid allegations of genocide against white Afrikaners. He plans to discuss bilateral relations with Trump. However, international relations expert Dr. Kingsley Makubela warns of a potential humiliation similar to Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Matapela Mahape.
SABC News, independent and impartial.
From an African perspective.
Digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa.
The third and final hour of the show, and we got cut just before the news. Thank you so much, Matapela, for that news bulletin, by the way. So the interesting part about the conversation that we're having now is that we need to also, I was just gossiping with Nombuso just now, and we're talking about how it's so easy to get tempted to want to hear about your guides from someone else, right? I think it just validates that. And, I almost slipped into that a little bit. So I'll be very honest. I almost slipped into that, like, what if? I think that natural desire of a human wanting to seek answers, when you have them, dear, you have the memo, just use the memo. You don't need your teacher there all the time.
You really don't. And I think the codependency is a big problem.
It really is. I mean, I can imagine even on your social media how many comments that come in. Do you do consultations? And the only thing we need to do is really just pay attention to our dreams and tap into our dreams.
You know what? I will say that it's not that I'm saying that people mustn't consult. I think let's make that one clear.
Sure.
I do understand there are problems that are way above you and you're not going to understand them and you're not going to know how to deal with them. And sometimes your ancestors are communicating in a way that you yourself don't understand what it is that they're saying. So you get a little bit confused. So I understand that. Trust me. And even along my journey, I've had some people help me. I'm not going to make it seem like I had all the answers and I figured it out.
Yeah.
But after running into some problems, I realized that I am stronger when I am connected by myself. And the more problems I had occurred because I was not connected for myself. I always needed someone to intervene. I always needed someone to assist. So the minute I grew my connection with them, it became better. So I'm not saying you're never going to need someone to help you.
Sure.
You're never going to need someone to guide you. But when you are connected by yourself, the need for someone else is less.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Also, then you can go back and question certain things. So I, for example, wouldn't want to call a healer every day to ask about every single dream.
Yeah.
So the more connected that you are, you can simply ask your guides, can you please help me decipher this dream? Can you help me understand what you guys mean by this? Because remember, your healer and your guides don't have the same ways of working. Everybody's ancestors work in their own way. So their communication patterns can be special to them. So some things maybe your healer might not exactly interpret the way your ancestors needed. So in order for you to get a message that is clear, ask your own ancestors, what did they mean? Yes, you can consult here and there, but try make a habit of creating a relationship between yourself and your guides. Let them know that they can rely on you in as much as you can rely on them. Let them know that you have a willingness to learn and a willingness to surrender the things of the earth in order to travel a spiritual journey, because you cannot travel a spiritual journey while hanging on the things of the earth. Some sacrifices must be made.
And how do we connect? I think that was the one question that was burning me. How does one connect? How does one even start to build that relationship? Do you just talk in the middle of the night? How do you pray? Who do you pray to? How do you even start that conversation?
So I always say the beauty about African spirituality is how it's connected to what? To nature. So I encourage people to go into nature and do their prayers there. So for example, you go to the mountain and you start with praying to God. Personally, guys, may I just add, I believe in God, me, myself, and I. I believe in the God of my ancestors. I don't believe in the God of other things that came via colonialism. I do truly believe in the God of my ancestors. And so I pray first to the God of my ancestors, and then I communicate with my ancestors by using the surnames that I know. However, I'm 100% sure of my paternity. I'm 100% sure of my DNA. If you're not 100% sure, or you're doubting something, or you're questioning something, then you just call upon the ancestors of your blood. You just tell them, you are the ancestors. I'm talking to the ancestors that have the same blood running through their veins as I have that blood in mine. So you are calling upon whoever is blood related to you, right? But also denounce people. Because I'm not stupid. I'm not saying all people are good. So denounce those ones that practice the darkness and practice witchcraft, because everybody has a witch in their family. You denounce them. You tell them, I don't want to deal with you, and I'm not interested in the things you used to practice, and please don't give them to me. I don't want them. You can say that for a good month, And also I felt something that worked for me was uniting your paternal and maternal, so that there's no beef over you and your gift and we gave them this gift now. Unite them. Also ask people that have passed to make peace with one another. Guys, people didn't pass and they all had peace. They loved each other. Some people did each other wrong, genuinely so. So ask them to forgive each other where they are. Make peace, because trust me, the more they are at peace, the more you will be at peace.
Yeah.
Another note, when we are spiritually gifted, we are called to heal generations, those that are coming and those that have passed before us. So remember that when on your mission, because it's not about you. So some of the struggles you'll go through are struggles from the past that you then need to break the pattern. And someone will ask me, but why must I pay for the sins of other people that passed before me? Even in that book that came with the colonizers, it talks about the sins of the father on the what? On the child. So don't act like this thing is new.
Yeah.
Even in their book, they tell you about that. So we do pay for the past debts of our family. And there can be patterns that carry on in our family if we don't break them. So certain things like that are your duty as the gifted one, is to ask. You break, maybe let's say that there's a divorce situation that you can notice in your family. People get married and they get divorced all the time. You tell them, I want to break off the cycle of divorce in my family. From now on, I want there to be marriages that last long. And then you ask them, how can I break this curse? So just small things like that, where you make sure that you break bonds that are not correct and you build stronger bonds. And even with those that are not gifted, you speak on behalf of them too. So represent your whole family and ask for forgiveness, not just for you and the things you've done wrong, but maybe other people, your cousins, your aunts, your this, your that. I'm not saying everybody needs our forgiveness, because God will deal with each of us for the life we've lived anyway. But just so that there's balance in your family, you can then say, I also ask for forgiveness for the wrongs that we have done because we're children and we did not know. So just those basic steps you can start with. And call your ancestors of purity, but also say, I want to communicate with those that have passed long ago and those that passed recently. Those that are old and those that are young. So we're talking in age, young ones and old ones. And for a female, if you know that you had an abortion, then you also do a ceremony of apologizing to your child that you let go of. You give them a name and you tell them that I'm sorry for that act, but I had my reasons and it had nothing to do with you, and I apologize. Please rest in peace. If anything, become an angel. And in the time when I am ready to have a family, please make sure you take care of those brothers and sisters of yours and you usher them into the world when the time is right. So just small things of making sure that our connection is there. Very, very small things that you can do on your own. Going to the side of the river, you don't need to go inside. Using anthills, just praying under a tree, in an open felt, going to the mountain, small things like that. Please do not get into a cave if you're not experienced.
Yeah.
Those are the things that need a healer.
Yeah.
So you can be comfortable first.
Yeah. And safe. I think also there's a safety thing that we also trying to address with going
especially
into mountains. Yeah. There is a syndicate currently. I was reading about it the other day, of people who are actively going to hurt and harm healers who go into the mountains, because ideally you want to go alone. So preferably open felts by the freeways. At least there you're visible. Everyone can kind of see you. But it's really unfortunate that that's where you are. But that wisdom is incredible. Thank you so much for joining us today. Both of us are certified yappers, so we can go. We can go at it. But
I'll leave that WhatsApp number. Is 060-819-9088. So 060-819-9088. Please do not give me a call. Just send me a WhatsApp message and you will get a response.
We'll take it from there. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a beautiful and blessed Sunday, and may your journey continue to inspire others. Thokoza Koko, siyabonga.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day further and enjoy the rest of the show. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. That was Gogo Kumi Hamese, who is a traditional healer and spiritual teacher, coming through with all the wisdom. I absolutely love that conversation for a myriad of reasons. I think a lot of people now are probably saying, oh, so that's all it really takes? I thought we had to do this and buy this. And no, it's really just nature and connecting with nature. So absolutely amazing. The one thing that I did learn was the talking to the moon. The moon, you acknowledge it. I always just acknowledge how pretty she was. I'm always finding myself complimenting the moon. Like yesterday, I have a really beautiful view from my bedroom of the moon. It's almost like smack bang in the middle of the windows, right? And she was this beautiful, like canary yellow. And she was like halfway through. I'm like, girl, you look so cute. Like, look at you mooning and stuff. It is at 8:17 Central African time. We're going to enjoy some music. And then we are commemorating Hypertension Day, World Hypertension Day, and which is awareness about high blood pressure. So my grandmother actually passed away due to high blood pressure. So this one is very, very, very important because she was very young. She was in her 50s. So, and I know that with our moms, our moms and dads, you guys go through a lot of stress. Our parents go through a lot of stress. So we need to find out how we can alleviate this. It is 8:18 Central African time. Welcome to the third and final hour of the show.
Rejuvenate your mind, rejuvenate your soul with Oasis. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story. A living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story. A living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa.
Démocratie, qui est le régime dans lequel nous sommes, dans notre pays. Mais j'ai plutôt pensé que nous sommes plutôt dans une démocratie.
Pourquoi?
Où il y a eu une cruauté, tellement une méchanceté des dirigeants envers la population. En fait, dans cette chanson, je suis en train de blâmer tout le monde. Je blâme et les dirigeants, qui pour moi sont des démocrates.
Oh, je suis maintenant en train de comprendre. Donc, démocratie. Oh!
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up with the Oasis. In its own voices, English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese, the languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph, not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices, English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese, the languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph, not just reporting history, but but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and...
It is at 8:29 Central African time. It's Salif Keita with Africa, celebrating Africa Month. And the one thing we also need to, in the midst of these celebrations, is bring us back to reality slightly, especially regarding our health as Africans. We carry a lot of stresses, a lot of grief, a lot of pain. And that, you think you're functioning, like I'm fine. No. I'm fine. I'll be good. I'm strong. And then your heart and your blood says, no, you're not, buddy. No, you're not. There's such a thing called hypertension. And May 17 marks World Hypertension Day. It is a global call to raise awareness about high blood pressure, often referred to as the silent killer, due to its lack of obvious symptoms. So to this day, we still speculate that my grandmother passed away due to the silent killer. We didn't know she was stressed. We were going through a lot as a family, sure, fine, but we didn't know how much of that she was carrying. And then how 80 blow fan Mugela's like, me, I'm meeting my maker. Oh, girl, just like that. And when they did, the tests, they figured that it was high blood pressure. So it's a very sensitive thing in our family. The moment your blood is even a point higher than what it should be, we act immediately because of that. But I do believe that there are homeopathic ways, there are natural ways, there are spiritual ways of dealing with the likes of hypertension. We've placed a lot of emphasis on the pills and the medications that we need. We understand that. We're aware of that. But now let's dig a little bit deeper into homeopathy and healing. And we are joined by our very good friend, respected homeopathy expert and wellness advocate, Kate Moyer. Kate, always a good time with you. How are you doing today?
Good morning, everybody.
So
lovely to be here again.
Yeah, absolutely love it. So let's talk about it. Hypertension. Why is it often called the silent killer?
Well, we all know that hypertension can lead to strokes, right? And heart attacks. So it is the silent killer, I think, a lot of the times, because when we have it, like I did, we sometimes don't realize it. It's not as noticeable as, let's say, cancer, for instance, or something brewing that's a little bit more obvious in nature. So what happens with hypertension is that it does tend to creep up on you because you don't realize that you are in a hypertensive state. And so this is exactly why a lot of people end up having those strokes and those heart attacks, because they literally aren't self-aware. So I'd love to share my own experience of how I cured myself, which is really important, naturally. And I do believe that all conditions that we experience physically are a metaphysical symptom of something deeper that's going on.
Sure.
So when we say it's a silent killer, what we are really saying is that that person doesn't have an awareness, just like I didn't at the time, that I actually have high blood pressure. And it's fascinating because, you know, it's very mood related. So if you become aware of yourself in those moments when your pressure is spiking, there is a definite pattern that's going on with your emotional state. There's a definite pattern that's going on with your levels of stress and anxiety. You will feel your heart beating faster. You will get headaches. You will get those kinds of symptoms. But normally the mood overshadows you becoming aware of those symptoms. And that's quite interesting. So if we start to pay attention to what is actually going on in my life in those moments, when it spikes, or what pattern can I see happening every single time I have a headache? And often people don't associate migraines with being hypertensive. But in my experience, migraines was something I was living with chronically for many, many years of my life. Little did I know that I was PTSD, and that was almost a symptom linked to my hypertensive condition, coupled with bad eating habits, of course. That was a recipe and a combination for disaster. So I would say, let's start off with trying to understand the cause before I get to the symptoms, because there's quite a few things you can do symptomatically just to give yourself relief. Absolutely important is to actually pay attention to the emotional state and to the breathing and to what's going on in the mind. Because there's a huge connection with the mind and our stress levels. And I will always say that it's the emotion that comes before the thought pattern. But if we aren't good with techniques like self-awareness, if we aren't doing meditation, or our lives are too stressful, or in a state of survival, whatever the circumstances might be, then it's very difficult for us to be in a state where we are able to observe the mind, observe even the energy that preceded the thoughts, right? What I would notice with myself, for instance, is I used to have quite a regular PTSD spike with my monthly hormonal cycle. And that spike would result in a triggering of this emotion in that time, because I was dealing with suppressed trauma. That energy used to pulsate in my body. Literally, I would wake up with a vibration. I became so good at noticing even the slightest change or shift in energy in my body. And then by the end of that day, I would have a headache and my pressure would spike sky high, and it would go out of control. And I had this pattern for years. Eventually, my doctor said to me, listen, your cholesterol's high, because cholesterol goes with the high blood pressure. I was obviously not eating well either. And usually, you know, negative, chronic, emotional eating tends to go with this condition, interestingly. So what a lot of people don't tell you is that there's this correlation between our emotional and energetic state and every single physical condition that we have. So it's really important to just take stock of where it might be coming from. In my particular circumstances, what was interesting was that the spikes was definitely related to having somebody traumatic in my life, having somebody toxic and who was potentially even abusive to some extent in my life. And it wouldn't be just because there were incidences of abuse, which is quite interesting, because if you are with somebody, and we spoke about this in the last show, where the energy of that person is so toxic, and you happen to be minding your own business, trying to do your own thing, living in your lane, in your home, but the energy is so toxic. I used to be, and I am an empath, so a lot of people don't understand how they absorb somebody else's energy. And I also noticed a pattern that my pressure would spike every single time I was in the vicinity with that person, even if they weren't being abusive in that moment. So it really can get quite deep how far this stress and anxiety and PTSD response can go within the body, because we are energy beings, right? In this physical body. And so to understand what is happening with the spirit when the physical body manifests high blood pressure or any other condition, for instance, is precisely what's key. So I would say once you've got a sense of awareness, once you've got a sense of, I understand that there's some pattern, this seems to be happening every single time I have thoughts of this one person who makes me so angry, or the situation that makes me so angry that I feel helpless, or if you can find yourself becoming aware of those patterns, then you can start to do something to try to shift it. And there are many, many techniques of finding a therapist, going to an energy healer, doing some meditation, doing some yoga, grounding outside. There's many things that you can do to symptomatically treat the root cause, which is the energy, right? That's creating this manifestation of the physical symptom in the body. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And it's probably not a mistake you would have heard from a doctor, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think also because we kind of rely on energy for positive feedback, right? So we say, oh, you've got good energy, or, we know how to respond to good energy, but we didn't realize how bad negative energy could actually be in your world, but how do you now heal yourself? How do you now...
Yes, let's get to the healing part. Let's talk about two types of treatment that I incorporated in my life in order to shift this and move this condition totally out, because I'm hypertensive free completely at the moment.
Wow.
Which is miraculous. So it is possible to do. I would say definitely my process was to go through to do a lot of breath work, to do frequency healing work, which I did, and to do energy healing. So that was my modality for how to shift that energy there. But when I was in a state of panic, high stress levels, anxiety kicking in, those PTSD symptoms kicking in that moment, I created a little cocktail, I call it, of that saved the day for me. So there's a synchronicity between emotions which are held in our belly, in our sacral area, which also happens to be the digestive system where we store all of the food energy, right? So what you will find is that when you're going through a stressful period, you will eat the way you normally eat. And for me, it used to be quite toxic. And it used to, include this craving for fried chips or whatever toxic thing it was, because now the emotion needs something to feed it. So you go for that toxic substance. And it could be a glass of wine, it could be a beer, it could be anything to soothe, right? To soothe. But the problem is that society has created all of the soothing foods to be very, very harmful. So there's a lot of harmful chemicals. We know that we are not supposed to be eating foods that are fried in seed oil, because that will take your blood pressure sky high immediately, because it's poison.
Yeah.
So what's happening, you've got an emotional poison in a sense, the energy, right, which is out of balance, dark, heavy, toxic, whatever the case might be. And then you've got another thing brewing, which is now that I'm feeding my body toxic things because that's where I'm at energetically. I am in a space where I am feeling low, I am angry, I am frustrated, I am tired. So I am going to soothe. And I'm going to soothe with food, and I'm going to soothe with alcohol. I'm going to soothe with vaping, smoking, whatever the case might be. So all of that consumption energy then sits in the belly. And so you have the gut-brain axis going completely out of balance. And you will see a lot of research and write-ups on, from a Western point of view, physically and physiologically, of what's happening with the gut-brain axis that causes the headache and the blindness and the migraine attack. These are all pre-symptoms now of a potential stroke or a heart attack, but your pressure's definitely going sky high, right? In that moment, one of the first things you need to do is to shift that axis. So what I used to do is, and I used to literally feel this way in the middle of the night, and I would get up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I would go and I would make myself, this was the cocktail, I kid you not. It was a piece of salmon, and it was boiled sweet potato. Crazy, right?
Wow, okay.
With Celtic salt. That's it. Instantly, within an hour, my headache would start to calm down. And I could feel, because with the IBS type migraine, because mine was so obviously connected to the emotion sitting in my belly, that it would result in, the nausea, but a diarrhea with the headache, because these are all symptoms of when your pressure is high that starts taking place. So the second I tried to shift that gut situation, I found my nervous system physically able to calm itself down. Now, what are we seeing in that combination is, obviously we're seeing the high levels of omega-3, right? We're seeing the magnesium, potassium. We're seeing all of those vitamins come through the food and into your belly to try and shift the energy that's going on.
Yeah.
So that would be my go-to when you're actually physically having an attack, over and above doing the box breath technique to calm your nervous system. You've got to get your whole nervous system to calm down when you're having an attack, I call it. This is only once you are aware that you're having an attack. Because what we normally do is, we're busy, we're stressed out, we're having an altercation, we're in the middle of an argument or a family fight, and we just keep pushing through. We don't stop to take that moment to go, I need to recalibrate. My whole system's going offline. I need to recalibrate. So what we end up doing is just go, push through that with a lot more stress and anxiety, not taking stock of what we're eating, not paying attention to what we're consuming. And then this results in a possibly dangerous situation. So I definitely think, try to observe yourself in that moment, and you need a dietary change. So once I became more aware, I would symptomatically treat. And there's a lot of other things that you can take. For instance, hibiscus tea that you can drink every day, burdock root you can take as well, yellow dock, burdock root, elderberry, soursop. These are all herbs that you can get out there. But at Dis-Chem or any of your favorite pharmacies or whatever the case is. But I think to get something natural and easy and that's inexpensive is important. We don't want to use medication to add more toxicity to the gut. So I prefer to heal naturally. And what I used to do is do some teas. In particular, I have a tree that's my favorite at the moment, which is the sage bush tree growing in my garden. And so I pluck out leaves daily, and I'll put this into hot water and drink it throughout the day. So often hypertension is connected to insulin resistance. And symptomatically, what's going on when you have high blood pressure, and please remember this, is that physically it's responding to a total hectic imbalance in the body that's manifesting in pressure on one of your organs. And when I say pressure, I mean it's an alarm. It's an absolute alarm going off, and you need to treat it as such, that there is a pressure on one or more of my organs. And in a person who has, like I did, insulin resistance, the imbalance was coming from the pressure on my liver. So my liver was actually, I had a fatty liver disease, which I am in the process of reversing, which was at cirrhosis, starting to become cirrhosis stage. So obviously when an organ is that damaged from years of chronic, let's say, bad eating or, bad habits or consuming and ingesting bad things, then obviously the body is signaling that I am out of balance with high blood pressure. By that time, you need to understand that it's already pretty far gone. And very often, especially in my case, the doctors didn't figure out that correlation. I figured it out for myself. So if the kidney's out of balance or the liver's out of balance, we need to check all of those vital organs. But really, listen to your intuition, because your intuition is going to guide you. You have your own inner guidance system, your higher self. If you really are able to tune in and get into that spiritual state where you are so self-aware and you're paying attention like I could. And obviously I'm intuitive, but we all have intuitive powers. Literally, you will get the guidance from the universe, because I would get a message on what to take, what herb to take, what tea to drink, how to self-soothe. And even the little meal concoction that I came up with was all through spirit, was all from the divine. So I would have, in combination with that, things like spinach, things like kale, and a low-carb diet. So eventually, when you're ready to take your power back with your health, when when you're strong enough to say, I am not putting anything toxic into my body, which usually correlates with when I am having boundaries and I'm not allowing anyone toxic into my space anymore. It's interesting how those two things work together. Because where does the will come from, right?
Yes.
Where does the will come from to stop eating the fries and to stop going for the beer and to stop going for the wine? It is so behavioral and so energy related that you can't look at this without the cause. So when I was ready and I had done the energy shift, then I was able to go, okay, we are going to do, I really want to be healthy.
Yeah.
I really want and love my body and love this body temple and want to give it the time that it deserves to eat better, to research what to eat. So from a dietary point of view, it's got to be a low carb diet. One of the first crucial things that must be taken out of your diet is the seed oil. And I mean, any seed oil has to go, has to absolutely go. So what happens, and what's happening when you have high blood pressure, very important to know this, is that your magnesium levels are taking an absolute nosedive. Your potassium and your magnesium are dropping to dangerous levels. And your vitamin D3 is low, which, by the way, is the sunshine vitamin. So if you can go out and be in nature, sunbathe, even naked if you can, not in public, of course. But if you can do sunbathing to get the vitamin D, and you'll get the vitamin D through eating healthily, through the greens, that is another way for you to try and circumvent those symptoms. But what I think is so important is you've got to understand how this energy is flowing and how you can take your power back. So when you've decided I am ready to go on this healing journey, both for my spirit and for my body, because you are many parts of self. You are your emotional self, you are your physical self, you are your spirit self. So how are we nurturing and caring and feeding each of those parts of ourselves, right? So the health regimen and the diet change is crucial. So seed oils are extremely poisonous and toxic, as are all of the fast foods that we eat. And of course, overloading your arteries with a high carb diet can be dangerous for you when you are hypertensive. So you've got to do something drastic. And what I used to do, which is, one might think of it as drastic, but it actually isn't. One of the things that recalibrates the gut almost immediately is fasting.
Yes. Is it intermittent fasting, or there's different types of?
Absolutely, intermittent fasting can work, but it may not be sufficient for somebody who is chronically hypertensive.
Okay.
So you would have to do a slightly more drastic fast in the beginning. And if you're strong enough and able to do a water fast, try the water fast to kind of just be the cleanser of the body and just shift, just to create the first shift. And then you can switch to the kind of intermittent fasting regimen. I went from, I did like one day because I really struggled with the water fast. It was very difficult for me. I did one day and then I went straight into, okay, fine, I can now do, and also it's training the mind and the body, because we think we can't do these things. We think, oh my God, I'm starving. There's no way I'm going to survive this day if I don't eat. And it's all psychological, because those are my limits. That's not true. We're overeating as a human species. We only need literally, 2,000 calories or less a day. We only should be having one low carb meal a day. So our society's trained us into overeating, and we overeat as a people because we are traumatized. We overeat to soothe. So definitely, and for me, again, I say be mentally ready, because you can psych yourself up to change, and you can fast, and it's possible to do so when you have the will, right? And where does the will come from? It's this relationship with spirit, with your higher self. Because if your will can be strong enough to do this because you truly are in a space of self-love, of wanting to care for this body temple, then the choice becomes easy. But when you're forced to, or the doctor's telling you to, or the family's telling you to, and you're just not emotionally there, you're going to go for the bag of chips. You're not going to listen. It just doesn't work. Or you're going to go out and binge drink, So this is the reality of the many things that we are dealing with that need to be balanced. And certainly for me, the fasting created the shift. And I did a 1-month fast where I only ate vegetables after the intermittent fasting. And what I do now is I fast every week. So it's become now a routine in my life where the less you eat, the less poison you're putting in your body. And when you do eat, try to eat nutritiously without food that has harmful toxics and substances. That's one way to symptomatically alter the gut biome and then bring in the nutrients that your body needs to try to fight whatever organ is not functioning at that time. And if you are disciplined enough to stick with that, your weight will drop, which will be good because then there's no pressure on your organs. And so many other symptoms like diabetes will come under control, insulin resistance will come under control, and so too hypertension will come under control. And of course, let's not forget healthy fats, the omega-3s. So I would definitely say it's omega-3, magnesium, potassium, and vitamin D3 as a combination to symptomatically treat that. And you can get those through vitamins, but you can also get it through food. And it's magnesium glycinate.
Kate, I know that there are people who want to dig deeper on their own type of healing, and maybe the toxic person in their life happens to be someone they can't stay away from. What if it's a mother-daughter relationship, a husband-wife relationship? It's a relationship that they can't stay away from, but it causes all of this. Where can one book a session, find you, in case they want to just dig a little bit deeper for their own personal benefit?
Absolutely. So my name is Kate Moya, spelled Katemoia, and I am available on all of my social media platforms. So if you want to DM me on those, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, my website, which is www.katemoya.com, you can book sessions or email me through there. My email is info@katemoya.com, Katemoia.com. And those are the ways you can get a hold of me. And if you need a session, please feel free. Or if you want to join us for a retreat where you really need to get out of the urban and join us, we are having a women's retreat in August, which is going to be about healing the divine feminine energies. Please give us a shout. We'll let you know when we're having events, because those days and those experiences can also be quite energy shifting in a more permanent way. When you are struggling. And we all, when we are struggling, need the support of somebody who's able to hold space and able to hold light for us, or to shift our energy drastically by going away from the current disposition in order to strengthen our spirit and strengthen our energy emotionally and physically, so that when we come back into the urban environment or the environment, like you said, where you can't really divorce yourself from that toxic person, it might be the brother, it might be the father, you come back with a different set of tools and a layer of protection around your spirit where it does not infiltrate and you're able to still protect yourself. So I have had that experience too of living with the toxic someone who is a family member, and you cannot escape that energy. And here's the truth, right? Sometimes the ones we truly love the most don't realize that they are toxic. And we still love them, and we love them. We absolutely do. It's not about the love, right? It does not mean that the energy dynamic is not still there. So when you shift yourself, you also shift the person around you, which is quite interesting. I've also had experiences where when I shifted my own vibration, my own victim consciousness energy in that moment, that relationship ended naturally. Yeah. Somebody even moved overseas at one point. Somebody I was in a workspace with almost every day. Yeah. So that shows you how the law of attraction can work with you when you are ready to say, I no longer want this kind of lifestyle. I'm not going to allow this energy to alter mine. I'm going to really make my own energy a sovereign priority in my life. And that only comes with when you go on that journey of self-love and self-knowing, right?
Kate, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for this insight. Definitely not the last time that we engage. Your expert advice always, aids in what people are going through and experiencing. So thank you so much, and have a blessed Sunday.
You too. Thank you very much. Blessings to everybody. Go well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. It is at 8:56 Central African time. We have the lady in blonde. Rumor has it blondes have a lot more fun.
call me Jamesina Blonde.
Hey, man.
Jamesina Blonde.
What do you mean, Jamesina Blonde? Give me
From
James.
James Bond, man.
I am not a James Bond girly.
No, matter it's a very popular.
I mean, clearly not. I'm kidding. I'm being spicy. How are you today?
I can see that. I'm like, this girl is on fire. This girl. Oh, I went to the polo last night, so I am.
Did our invite get lost in the mail, the buso? Like, what happened with the polo?
Guess who I saw also?
Who do you see?
Nompumelelo was there.
Oh,
stunning as well.
Okay, so it got lost in the
So
mail.
yours got lost in the mail.
No, it's fine. I think this year you guys didn't want to experience our best dressed. We wanted to give you guys a chance, so it's fine. I hope you enjoyed it.
Maybe your inboxes are full, guys. Start deleting so that you can make space for invites because you get a lot. So you probably missed it.
Maybe. What's coming up on the show?
It's gonna be it's a busy lineup this morning.
Okay.
One of the interesting conversations, they're all interesting, but one of the interesting conversations amongst others is ethical influencing. We're looking at the influencer culture in general.
Okay.
Who holds them accountable with the things that they accept to post and influence. But also we're speaking to them about, how do you choose integrity over the bag? Like your money, which is always the case.
Yeah.
Wabo. I think it's a good thing to start having that conversation. We know that's not the case. Like people, when it comes to their money, you can't tell people what to do.
Absolutely,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it's not the reality out there.
Absolutely.
But we should start having and encouraging it as well. Because yes, they need to make their money, but there's also false information. There's also, especially these ladies who influence younger girls through products and stuff like that. They're girls that just follow blindly. If you say, they'll do it. So we're going to have that conversation this morning. We're also going to unpack this big multi-million-dollar Forever New.
Oh, I thought you were talking about my business. Sorry, yeah.
Ooh.
I'm just manifesting.
Please give me 5 minutes.
I'm just manifesting.
Girl. Forever New, I'm sure you've come across them, ne?
Absolutely. I know a lot of people who are distributors and are killing the game.
Yes.
Yeah, they have a lot of money.
And I asked her, the lady who's coming later, is this an online business? And she says it is. Because mostly she markets online.
Yeah.
And now with things like WhatsApp, you can have so many clients.
So much easier, yeah.
Ne? But how are these other ones making money while others aren't making money? Because I feel like it's linked to other things because they attend these kinky conference where they motivate each other. Yeah. And then, so I'm like, and then she was just recently in Paris. She just bought a house. But I'm like, come through, let's talk about it. Did you buy through Forever You or you've got other streams of income? And she's like, no, it's through the business. But I know sometimes they say that so that they can recruit you because I think it's pyramid scheme-ish business.
Yeah.
It has that factor to it. So I want her to teach us about this Forever New pyramid scheme thing. No, I don't want to do it. Trust. Hey, I'm not a very good seller though.
Really?
That's why. Hey. And of course, there's so many other conversations, so you'll have to listen. The listeners will have to listen from 9 o'clock.
And you look 12. Good. You look good. So I think they'll listen and watch.
I overindulged at the polo.
That's what I'm saying. I'm shocked that I'm not there. Like, I am actually gutted. I am, entitled to an invite. Like, the people I know at Nedbank, guys, what happened? I even wore their colors last year.
No, but Ntsako, please thank your ancestors because I'm breathing through the wind.
I'm a natural rock star. We don't breathe through wounds. We survive.
Right.
This is how I am all the time.
So I'll pass my invites to you because I'm just like, no.
No, there's another one coming. Don't worry. It is 9 a.m. Central African time. Thank you so much for choosing me to be your girl. From me, Ntsako Mhlanga. It's been absolutely fantastic. Have a beautiful and blessed Sunday and week ahead. Goodbye.
SABC News, independent and impartial.
From an African perspective.
Top stories this hour. Experts warned that the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa might be humiliated in the US, and Pope Leo XIV celebrates his inauguration mass at the Vatican this morning. For the news at 9, I'm Matapura Mahabe. Good morning. International relations expert and former South African diplomat Dr. Kingsley Makhubela has cautioned of the possibility of President Cyril Ramaphosa being humiliated in the U.S. Oval Office, like Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky during his meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. Ramaphosa will tomorrow embark on a working visit to the U.S. in a high-stakes meeting amid tense diplomatic relations between the two countries. Makhubela elaborates.
Trump is likely to play to the media color. He's done that before. My view is when the press contingents in the White House try to provoke Ramaphosa, he should just say to them, listen, all these issues that Trump has raised are going to be discussed in a closed meeting. Would brief you after the closed meeting, and we are quite confident that after the closed meeting, we will find each other on those issues. Instead of trying to rebut him in the meeting and be confrontational in that meeting, if Ramaphosa attempts to also play to the media gallery, it could degenerate into the Zelensky syndrome.
Authorities in South Africa have arrested more than 700 suspects during a police operation called Operation Chanela in the Diepsloot township located north of Johannesburg. The area is known for its high crime rate. Police say 28 people were apprehended for being in the country illegally and 13 for driving under the influence. Gauteng Police Commissioner Tony Mtombeni is certain that the area's police station is well equipped to deal with the amount of crime in the area.
Once more again back here in Diepsloot, as we know for the fact, the area is troubled in terms of your murders, your assault, in terms of subcategory robbery, that your car hijackings, your truck hijacking, and of course the property-related theft of motor vehicles. I must just say that we are here so that we can strengthen, the hand of the station commander and the district commissioner.
The Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has approved the purchase of more air assets to fight insurgency in the northeastern part of the country. This follows a meeting of defense officials in which Tinubu ordered the military to step up counter-terrorism operations. The BBC's Gillian Bedford has the details.
Regional governors have been warning Abuja that the Nigerian military is losing ground. There have been numerous attacks on army bases in recent weeks, and Bola Tinubu is searching for better ways of combating a 20-year insurgency that's claimed tens of thousands of lives and displaced millions. Additional warplanes, helicopters and drones is just one of his ideas. But families of soldiers killed in the fighting have told local media that what's really needed is adequate arms and ammunition for the troops on the ground.
A report released by the mining-affected communities United in Action has found that South African Parliament's Mining Portfolio Committee and the country's Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources have failed to hold mining companies accountable for failing to keep promises made to mining communities. The report, titled Looted Promises, The Crumbs Economy of Mining, which is a result of a 3-year study, also found that 11 mining companies audited around the country have failed to implement employment and development projects promised to surrounding mining communities. The organization's executive director, Christopher Rutledge, explains.
This crumbs that we're talking about amounts to less than 0.1% of the profits that are generated by these 11 companies. But of those crumbs, 80% of that crumbs are being stolen or looted or misdirected. And we're saying that that is a serious problem, because we have an unemployment problem in South Africa. We have a developmental problem in South Africa. And so the funds that are dedicated for developing poor marginalized communities is being looted. And we've told the Department of Mineral Resources, we've told Parliament, we've told the Hawks, and the state just does not seem to be interested in dealing with mining companies.
And Pope Leo XIV is celebrating his inauguration mass at the Vatican today. It's the official start of his papacy 10 days after his election. It brings together world religious and political leaders as well as royalty. The BBC's Alim Makbul has these details.
The Mass will mark the formal beginning of Pope Leo's pontificate. Key moments like praying at the tomb of St. Peter and being presented with what's known as the Fisherman's Ring will symbolically link the new Pope to the origins of the church he now leads. Before it all, we'll see him being driven through the crowds in a Pope-mobile. Afterwards, he's expected to spend time with some of the dignitaries who've come to attend.
A recap of your top story. International relations expert has warned that President Cyril Ramaphosa may be humiliated in the U.S. office during his upcoming high-stakes meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, similar to Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. This comes amid tense diplomatic relations between the two nations. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Matapela Mahape.
SABC News, independent and impartial.
From an African